Week 2 of the 2022 preseason is underway. We'll talk Bears and Seahawks, our big takeaways from the Thursday night football game. We've already talked Friday games and previewed those on yesterday's program. Check that out. So we'll get into the Sunday and Saturday football games for Week 2 preseason, what to watch for in all 11 of those games coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Thanks for joining us here on Peacock and Williamson, and thanks for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are amidst the preseason, Matt, and we will preview the Saturday, Sunday games on the schedule this week. Got some notes on Bears and Seahawks, two not very good football teams, it looks like. I want to let the folks out there know that today's episode is brought to you by Elias. Their app gives you access to team and player stats, head-to-head team comparisons. Give yourself the edge this NFL season. Find Elias Game Plan app in the App Store or Play Store today. I don't think it's a stretch, Matt, to say that you can't take too much away from preseason games, but both starting quarterbacks were in there. No quarterback has played as far as starting quarterbacks around the league. If indeed it's going to be Geno Smith, then Geno Smith has for the Seahawks in the first 2 weeks. So we've seen what that first unit looks like quite a bit. I mean, not, his best pass catchers and all that. There's, you don't want to overrate the preseason, but man, it does not feel like the Bears or the Seahawks are going to be any good this year, despite the 2-0 start for the Bears. 27-11, the final score there, if that matters to anybody out there.
It doesn't matter to me. I think there's a chance that these two pick 1 and 2 in the draft. Like, I'm willing to even put them in that kind of lottery. I think there's big problems with these football teams. You're right. Geno played a lot the first game, played the first half. But Drew Lock had COVID. Justin Fields played 9 snaps, and Trevor Siemian comes running out in the middle of the first quarter. I'm like, that's it for Fields? I mean, he doesn't need any more work? I didn't quite understand that. We did see DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for 3 snaps each, so I don't know what to really take away from this. I'm not very impressed with either team. I think both of them have a lot of issues. Some fantasy nuggets is I think Velus Jones has a chance to help this team more than people want to maybe think. I mean, everyone just thinks about he's so old, why would you draft him? Well, he might be good at football too. I think that's a possibility. And the Noah Fant usage through 2 weeks has been very bizarre. Like, he's not really in the mix for them very much. So a couple things, you guys with the some of your fantasy stuff floating around here. I'm not saying draft Velus Jones, but I'd be wary about drafting Fant.
I do have Velus Jones, and I believe it was the last pick in our Locked On Dynasty League draft.
Oh, that's different.
Maybe even post-draft when I picked him up, just to wait and see. He might have some gadget use from this. I don't think he's going to be a high target player or anything, return value maybe. But and I'm glad you brought up the tight ends. That was my major takeaway from this game. Both teams tight ends. Let's start with the Bears.
Good point.
Fields. I do want to say with Justin Fields, this is it continues to be worrisome because when you see him out there with the first unit, the offensive line's not great, and Darnell Mooney's a number 2 who's going to have to play number 1. And I think it's Equinemi St. Brown's been taking the number 2 wide receiver snaps. I mean, they've got some injuries there. Byron Pringle hasn't been playing, so. But this stat is really the one that worries me, and this relayed from Warren Sharp through 2 games out of 40 quarterbacks this preseason. Justin Fields ranks number 6th in the highest in pressure rate, 44%, and that's a lot. Nearly half of his snaps.
Right.
4th highest in sack rate, 12.5%, and number 1 highest in hit or sack rate, 33%. So he's getting hit a lot behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of people say sacks is a quarterback stat as much as an offensive line stat, and I think that bears itself out. I think it's
bears itself out.
Hey, there we go. Definitely did that on purpose. And so, worried a little bit for Justin Fields in that offense because he's already had a problem holding the ball too long. I think he's kind of bailing out a little bit too early at times. Although things like it does seem like he's getting the ball out quicker at the same time, but still with a 44% pressure rate. I mean, something is still just not adding up with that offense, even though, 5 of 7 passing. He had a nice long first drive that ended in a field goal before he left the game. It looks better than last year from Justin Fields' side, but it's not going to look better, I don't think, with that offensive line if he's getting pressured half the time he's dropping back.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, he is as Nate Tice likes to say, he's a big game hunter. He wants to hold the ball. He wants to throw it deep downfield, which means longer developing plays. And his blockers flat out stink. I think his O-line is probably the worst in the league. I mean, I think I would trade anyone with that. I would not trade any of them with that one. Looking for good news, folks. I mean, I was looking at salary cap space yesterday, and we were talking to Sean Watson. And next year, the Giants have $54 million in cap space. That's second in the league to the Bears, who have $100 million. So, and Seattle is 40. So, better times are coming, folks. I just look at the Bears and say, just hang on this year. Don't ruin Fields. I don't care if you win a game. Draft the Ohio State or LSU receiver, sign another, draft 5 off, sign offensive line left and right. Just don't destroy this guy over the next 17 regular season games. And maybe that's why he only did play 9 snaps. And
you hope it's not too late.
Exactly.
He's not already getting destroyed and has been destroyed over the first couple of years of his career. But I, don't want to bury these teams quite yet. One thing, both tight ends, you nailed it with
bury.
Yeah. Oh my God! All right, yeah, it's the end of the week.
With that. Okay, yeah,
it is the end of the week. Noah Fant, 1 catch, -3 yards. His usage is worrisome because Will Dissly's not even back. Like big
Parkinson's playing over on him.
Yeah, they've kind of been trading in and out with Colby Parkinson and Noah Fant. And Noah Fant was one of the pieces coming over in the trade with the Broncos for Russell Wilson. And you thought he'd be a big part of the offense and might have been a big piece of that trade. But right now, he's teetering on tight end 2-3 on his own team. So if you're doing stock up, stock down, which is a segment we do during the regular season here on Peacock and Williamson, big stock down for Noah Fant, just judging by how much they're using him and what his role could be when Will Dissly's back in the offense. I mean, he might be a firm tight end 2 at best on his own team. So not touching him in fantasy leagues. And on the other side, we talked about the lack of pass catchers for the Bears, kind of building some chemistry with tight end Cole Kmet there. And I think he's got enough athleticism, enough ability that he's going to be an every down player. He can block a little, he can catch a little, he's got enough juice to get down the seam a little. And so I like the rapport I'm seeing him getting built with his quarterback in Justin Fields. So I would say stock up with Cole Kmet on the other side.
Yeah, Kmet's one of my favorite, high tight end 2 type of guys, projects. I think he's going to catch a lot of balls. He was the first tight end drafted in the class he came out, and that doesn't mean he's a superstar prospect, but there's a lot of ability there. And the thing people don't like about him is he didn't score any touchdowns last year. Well, that's going to change. I mean, I bet he catches 6 to 8 touchdowns this year.
One last thing on this game, and it's an apology from my end. I want to apologize to Travis Homer, Seattle Seahawks running back. He had 5 carries for 44 yards in this game. Really had a nice run and showed off his athleticism and looked dynamic on his 33-yard scamper. And I was sort of bad-mouthing their group, saying that, with Rashad Penny's injuries and then now the hernia for their second-round pick in Walker, and, you're going to have to see DJ Dallas and Travis Homer in there. Well, maybe I sold Travis Homer short, so I apologize to those guys. I like what I saw from Travis Homer in this game.
That's one thing they have, is they got plenty of running backs in Seattle.
And I guess Geno Smith, it looked better than what his numbers have looked like. He was 10 of 18, not terrible, 112 yards. I
think we know what he is. He's fine.
But he's quarterback at best 25 through 32 in the league instead of, high end backup of 33 to 40 in the league, which is still not great for week to week, having the other team most likely the advantage at quarterback against you.
Right. I mean, they're going to have to play a certain way. It's going to be a long year for them too. I mean, but if those tackles and Maffei and Walker and those guys really develop, I can see optimism around Seattle next year.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start previewing the Friday, Saturday, week 2 preseason games, what to look for in each one of those 11 contests next. But level with me. I think we've all been there. Hindsight is 2020, and you can't change the past, but what if you could get a little help from your future self? And you can with Dave. Maybe you'd ask to borrow a little cash. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash, more money to do whatever it is you need to do. You might have some bills stacking up. You might have this little excursion you need to. You might need to buy something to help your side hustle so you can make more cash in the end. Invest in yourself and get a little help from your future self in the process. You can tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. There's no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's Dave, D-A-V-E. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Thanks again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day. However you play, get the latest NFL fantasy draft tips from Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty, featuring my co-host, Matt Williamson. Plus, starting August 22nd, it's Fantasy Week next week. We're bringing you daily top 10 lists for Fantasy Draft Week. Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's get into these Friday contests here on the week 2 slate. And we've got...
I think we talked Friday. I think we got to get into Saturday, right? Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday are the games, the weekend games. We've already covered the Friday games. So we're looking at Saturday and Sunday here on the schedule. And it starts with Broncos and Bills, 10 a.m. Pacific time start. Get some of those early mornings here for the West Coasters where we kind of roll out of bed, have a little breakfast, and watch a little football. I like that about Sundays on the West Coast. I used to hate it. I used to wish I was, the late night primetime games as a night owl. I wish I was an East Coaster with these times. And now having a kid, getting a little older, kind of like rolling out of bed and watching football on a Sunday morning. And we got it Saturday and Sunday this week. We've got Broncos and Bills. What are you looking for? Broncos at Bills Saturday.
Yeah, my wife's actually going to be out of town, so I might just have preseason on pretty much from 1 Eastern until Monday night straight. Just keep banging this stuff out. This isn't going to be super high on my list because I would bet we see very little Russell Wilson and Josh Allen. They'll probably play a series or two, but I wouldn't push my luck with those guys. How about Cook for the Bills is kind of exciting. Their young D-line, I guess, is sort of exciting. Interesting. One little note we haven't brought up with the Bills is Tre'Davious White isn't 100% yet, and Levi Wallace is in Pittsburgh. They used a first-round pick on a corner, but right now that corner group is what worries me most about the Bills.
Boogie Basham with the sack. I think he was someone that you wanted to look at last week, and I was watching because you brought him up, and it was a good one, second-round pick from last year. So that's another player I'm watching, and yeah, it kind of goes along with what you're talking about with the young players. They spent so many draft picks on the defensive line, then added a big free agent in Von Miller to the group with, Oliver and Rousseau and Basham and Epinesa, and that group should be carrying that defense, and we'll see if it turns out to be the case this year. Yeah,
and trying to think who else are interesting. I mean, we talked tight ends just a minute ago. Maybe these Denver tight ends, Alberto and the rookie. I mean, maybe they'll get a little bit more run, or a guy like Hamler we might see a lot of in that game. Some interesting, I don't say depth pieces, but not primary receivers for the Broncos. And you're right, that Bills D-line, that front, even Ed Oliver and all the guys they've invested in, there's a lot of early picks. And now, big brother Von Miller shows up to show, get them all on the right career path.
I've loved what I've seen so far from the first rounder too on that defense in Kyer Elam, the cornerback. Yeah, they got themselves a good one, nice little pick. And in round 1, Alberto and Greg Dulcich, what's that going to look like? I think last week number 1, the starters were treated like, the gold, except for Alberto. He was the only starter that was kind of out there. And so does that mean there's a competition there? And then we might see the third rounder in Dulcich out of UCLA being big time competition for Alberto, because a lot of the fantasy community loves Alberto this year as a sleeper tight end.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of him. I mean, like we just talked about Cole Kmet. Would you rather have Alberto or Cole Kmet? I don't know.
Maybe Cole Kmet. Now that I've seen him, but we'll see what Alberto looks like, and
less competition
comparison there for sure. Yeah, less competition. Yeah, absolutely. Playing from behind a lot for the Bears, maybe.
Right. No, I might rather have Kmet.
Lions at Colts. Where are we at with Lions and Colts in week 2 of the preseason? Players to watch.
So I was all excited to come home. I was going to watch the finale of Better Call Saul, and I just never got around to it last night. But instead, I was doing some work stuff and threw on Hard Knocks Lions, their second go-round, and I'm rooting for this team. I mean, maybe it's just this coaching staff being all the old ex-players and Campbell style, but I like what this team is doing. I would imagine they play their guys. You know, just the mentality of that team. I think they realize they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but they're really building a foundation there. So you might see both sides of the ball really, stand out and play a while. Hutchinson was really good in the first game. So again, I think the Lions are highly interesting. I'm not sure what the Colts will do. I mean, I would not play Pittman a ton. I don't think you need to play Ryan a lot at this point. I'm sure guys like Buckner aren't going to really factor in. So maybe the Lions really take it to the Colts second team.
Rodriguez, number 44, linebacker.
Oh, yeah, he's all over it. Yeah,
he's become a darling. And it's one thing that you realize every year at the end of training camp and preseason is those superstars in the preseason doesn't always pan out into the regular season. And so you might overvalue some of the things we see in the preseason at times. So just a reminder to throw out there to some folks, but it is sometimes fun to just overreact. Anyway.
It is.
And with the Colts, I'm looking at Nick Cross. I liked him in the draft. I think he's could have been a first-round pick next year. He's so talented. They've called him Bob Sanders, the new Bob Sanders. That came from ownership, actually. And so, but he's walked right into the starting job there now at strong safety. So I'm going to watch him. And if he's a liability, there's the next superstar safety in the NFL because he's got 4.3 speed and he is rocked up and he can hit people. So that would be a nice way to complete that defense that looks like it could be pretty good for the Colts this year.
I know we need to hustle on these, but Bernard Raymond would be another rookie that they really could use him to grab that left tackle job, and it doesn't sound like it's quite happening yet in his rookie year.
At a certain point, it just when you start naming rookies because you want to see the young players, and they're the ones that are going to play a lot in a lot of these games, while the veterans sit. Alec Pierce is another one there because they need number 2, number 3 pass catchers to Michael Pittman on offense. Yeah,
I agree completely. But this should be a decent game.
Commanders at Chiefs. This one I am all about because I was already all in on Skyy Moore, and now with Smith-Schuster getting banged up a little bit, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Skyy Moore ended up being the most valuable rookie receiver in this entire class because of the situation he walked into with a superstar quarterback and targets available. So yeah, Skyy Moore, I'm all about it. I'm gonna have my eyes on him for sure.
I would think you feature him in this one. A real hot fantasy name, which I can't quite jump on yet, is Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, a lot of thought that Ronald Jones might get cut and Pacheco could be the main, early down guy complimenting CEH. So interested to watch him, but I think he's kind of just a guy in the fantasy community is overreacting to him, but whatever.
Yeah. When you see the possibilities, you're like, a 7th-round running back, Isaiah Pacheco, and a 7th-round running back, an undrafted running back, a 5th-round running back, they can all, young players, rookies can jump in and have an impact. So I understand the excitement, and I've seen Jerick McKinnon up close. So Jerick McKinnon's been around for a while. Like he's not a roadblock. Ronald Jones isn't a roadblock. He might not even make the team.
Right.
Blair has been a disappointment. Maybe, I wouldn't just say that he's, gonna be a swinging gate that Isaiah Pacheco blows through on his way to running back 1 usage. But I can understand why you might be a little excited, might want to stash someone like Isaiah Pacheco. Definitely someone to watch in this game.
Yeah, he's a hot name. Last week we talked about 4 or 5 running backs, guys like Kareem Hunt, Josh Jacobs, et cetera, that could be on the move if at the right price. I think if I was Kansas City, I'd be in that market.
On the Washington side of things, the rookies, obviously, Jahan Dotson,
no doubt.
Fedarian Mathis on the other side of the ball, but
Jamin Davis from last year.
Right, yeah. I just want to see this unit come together a little bit. I want to see this team is just so disappointing. Sam Howell's gonna be fun to watch. All the rookies, sure, but however long the starters are in, if they are in, you want to see this team take a step. That's what the Commanders are all about. They got a new quarterback. They've got so much talent on defense. Go take that step. So let's start seeing some cohesion here with this team.
Yeah, I think they have pretty much talent on offense too. I mean, they have 3 backs. They got 4 receivers. Their O-line's not bad. This is kind of a sleeper-ish team to maybe win 9 games or 10 if they get a few bounces or whatever and sneak in the playoffs. So I'd like to see some of that for sure.
And actually, you mentioned the running backs real quick, the fantasy side of things. What's going on with Antonio Gibson? He's on the first team.
I don't want
he's
him.
not on the first team. That is a backfield that's up in the air. So for sure, something to watch.
Yeah, I can see them trading Gibson. Maybe Gibson should go to the Chiefs. Talk about a fantasy boost. You mentioned Howe. I just want to throw him out there because really rooting for him. I'm not rooting against Wentz. I just thought Howe should have been a much higher pick than he was. So I'd like him to show the world that they missed on him.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Tennessee Titans. I don't even want to talk about the game because have you heard the latest theory about why Tom Brady is not?
I was going to bring that up. Like, where is he? I don't know the new theory, but he's been gone a long time.
And Adam Schefter reported yesterday that head coach Todd Bowles is kind of like, well, yeah, we don't have a timetable, but they didn't seem worried about it either. It's very strange. You just don't take time off during preseason and training camp if you're an NFL player. And
he doesn't take time off when he goes to the French Riviera with his wife.
He's a grinder. He's an absolute grinder.
Right.
He loves the competition of even practice. If you have heard anything about Tom Brady, so it's a wild one. But here's the theory, and I love it, and it kind of adds up. There's a theory out there, and this came from a Reddit board that, and it's starting to get a little viral, starting to make some waves this morning. Tom Brady is a contestant on The Masked Singer.
What?
Which you need to it ruins the surprise, right?
You can't say
sign an NDA. You can't tell anybody what you're doing. He signed a deal to broadcast for Fox. That is the network that broadcasts The Masked Singer. The Masked Singer is filming this week from the 12th to the 20th. And this could have been something while he was retired that he agreed to do. And it was part of the stipulations of him returning to the team that they were going to allow him to be off this week to film this and be on The Masked Singer. So that is that is the latest theory. And it makes as much sense as anything else right now.
I'm going to buy it. Yeah, I think that might actually be true. It sounds bonkers, but everything you just laid out, it's not something he could get out of. He did kind of retire. I assumed it was like a wedding or something personal. One of his kids had a surgery scheduled or something, something behind the scenes that he told them, yeah, I'll be back, but August in the teens, I'm not going to be available. Is that cool? Yeah, because there's something really important. Well, this might not be really important, but it might not be something he can get out of either. Yeah,
and you hope it's something like this and not something that's really serious with his family or anything like that.
Exactly, but it has been a while.
And that's I've never seen the show, but I wouldn't watch that show if you put a gun to my head, to be honest with you. But, which is I'm sure why they want football players as the demographic. Gronk has been on it apparently. Antonio Brown's been on that show. I found out recently. Joe Buck, also Fox broadcaster, has been on the show.
Okay,
amazingly, and so I love the theory. It's a very interesting one. I guess it's plausible. The timelines add up for this one, and it's filmed in front of a live audience, as far as I know. So if somebody's there, and one of the contestants is 6'5" and has a goat mask or a Wolverine mask.
Oh, really?
To draw some conclusions there, right? And I don't know if that's the case, but we need someone from the crowd to let us know what the masks are on this one.
All the clues are coming together here. I think that's what it was. The AB Gronk connection, two of his buddies, two of his former, top targets. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm buying it, man.
Yep, I love it. I'm in 100% on that theory. Love it. And for the Titans, let's see Treylon Burks not run with the threes and run with the ones and look good.
Yeah, I want to see Willis too. Willis, I think, is really exciting. Yeah.
It's one of the more fun preseason teams just because they have a quarterback that's a young, talented guy that's going to play a lot.
Tampa's probably one of the least favorite, teams for the preseason.
All right, tons more games.
Trask could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Trask. Tons more games to get into here on the rest of the Saturday and Sunday schedule in week 2 of the preseason. But I want to let the folks out there know about BetterHelp. Life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through it all. It's one of the most important things you can do. If you show up for yourself, it makes you available to show up for your friends and your family and do everything else in your life that you need to take care of. And whether it's a major event in your life that you need to talk through with a therapist, or maybe you just want someone to talk to and have a weekly checklist, make sure you're at where you want to be every week. BetterHelp Online Therapy will assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. And it's really easy. I went through the process of, answering a few questions, and they match you with the therapist. If you don't like your therapist, it's really easy to change it free of charge too, because sometimes it can take a few tries to find the right fit for you. It's not a crisis line, not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime, send a message with your therapist. You can do it via video chat. You can do it over the phone. However you want to communicate, that's how you can do it at BetterHelp. And they have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Dolphins and Raiders, the third preseason game now of 4 for the Raiders because they're in the Hall of Fame game. What are you watching? Raiders at Dolphins.
First off, a lot of these are pretty far road trips. Denver goes to Buffalo, Raiders go to Dolphins. It always used to be closer. But side note, just want to throw it out there. Both these teams, I'll wrap it up real quick. O-lines. Yeah, I think the Miami's O-line was amongst the worst in the league, but I have a lot of hope that it's going to get better this year, where I think the Raiders might rival the Bears as worst O-line in the league. So I want to see how both these O-lines perform against good fronts.
Third-round center, Dylan Parham. I thought he was a fantastic fit. Center, guard, tackle versatility for the Raiders. Let's see how he looks. Is he going to earn himself a starting job as a rookie and an offensive line that could use an infusion of young talent for sure? And then, of course, the Josh Jacobs, Zamir White, the usage there. Does it look like Zamir White is someone who could be a real asset to your fantasy football teams? Amir Abdullah, Brandon Bolden, Kenyon Drake. That's a wide open backfield with a lot of players. Josh Jacobs is at the top, but it feels like he's not going to be there for long, or at least be part of a committee with the Raiders.
Come to think of it, both backfields will be interesting to see the usage. Miami's got a lot of guys too.
They do have a lot of guys, and you want somebody, if it's that Shanahan outside zone run scheme, and they're able to put up numbers like past Shanahan offenses have been able to, you definitely want a piece of that guy who's going to get the most action. And Raheem Mostert, if he can stay on the field, has been dynamic in that outside zone stuff because he's so fast. So, and you don't have to pay up for any of those backs right now.
Yeah, we just need some clarity.
Steelers at Jaguars. You follow the Steelers closer than anybody, and they're a fun team just because of the Pickett to Pickens connection. So that's what I'm all about Saturday when I'm watching Steelers at Jaguars.
Yeah, and Steelers O-line is what I'm really focusing on because I think the Jags defensive front is a pretty stiff challenge, including the first overall pick. Of course, Lawrence, there's some obvious ones here, Pickett, Lawrence, these type of guys I think will play quite a bit. I think you only see Trubisky for about a quarter or so.
Travis Etienne, who's been a fantasy darling. We talked about him last week a lot as well and seeing his first action on the field. So, can he continue to stay healthy, continue to look dynamic? So, there's a lot of easy ones on that Jaguars roster to look for, which makes it for a fun preseason football game.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Jags will be one of the most fun preseason teams to watch.
We've got the 49ers at the Vikings, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. No Trey Lance in this game. The 49ers have an odd schedule where they're playing 3 preseason games in I think 12 days because they have the first day game next week, and they just had group joint practices with the Minnesota Vikings. So I think they're going to shut down a lot of the first teamers. So this might not be a very fun game to watch in Minnesota on Saturday.
And just the way the Vikings are built, Cook, Jefferson, Cousins, I don't know that I play those guys all that much either. They have a lot of draft picks from the last couple of years that'll be interesting to watch, both those defensive backs. But overall, this one might be a little bit of a snoozer.
I agree. Kellen Mond, can he show that he's going to stick in the NFL because the last regime couldn't stand him, apparently.
I don't quite understand it, but there's some buzz around him.
Maybe a backup quarterback for Kirk Cousins at the very least. Cowboys at Chargers to finish off the late game here on Saturday night. And when I think of the Chargers, I just think of Isaiah Spiller and the running game. And that's what a lot of these have been, for that fantasy usage, because, they've got a stalwart of a running back who's the number one. How's the usage for the number 2 back? Does he look like he could be of value for your fantasy teams in that handcuff in case Austin Eckler goes down?
Yeah, 100% agree. I hope I'm expecting Spiller to grab that job. It doesn't sound like he has yet. And Cowboys, outside of CeeDee Lamb, need to find some pass catchers. So I would shut down Lamb and let all these other guys get a lot of time and see who kind of emerges from that group.
Great call. Looking at Sunday football games for week 2 of the preseason, Eagles at Browns. So 11-game suspension, that means Deshaun Watson can still play in the preseason, right?
I think so, and I would imagine he will. I mean, side note, I meant to mention this yesterday. When he plays in week 13 in Houston, it'll be 700 days between his last game.
Wow.
700.
That's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. I would play him a lot in the preseason.
He needs to play. Yeah, he completed like 1 of 6 passes last week too. So it wasn't like he came out hot. So knock as much rust off as you can now, so there's less rust to knock off later. And in fact, play him as much as you can. Really,
I think so. But you got to get Brissett ready too. Like,
I mean, play him. So like play Watson for an entire half, and then play. But then you need Brissett to work with the ones. It's such a tough situation. I just hate everything that's going on with the Browns right now. You just have to fade them so hard, even though it's such a talented team, just because of all this weirdness that's up in the air.
No, I think that's the best stuff to watch, because I mean, and the side part of that is you can't put Watson or Brissett out there behind a second or third offensive line. So in order to give those quarterbacks some time, you're going to have to play, Wirfs and all those guys as well.
What are we looking for in this Bengals and Giants game, Matt? Anything that you are really excited to see between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Giants on Sunday evening?
Hasn't been a lot of great reports about Daniel Jones. I'm hoping he kind of turns a corner a little bit. Burrow's back from the appendectomy. Will he play? I guess it's possible, probably a long shot. Yeah.
Unlikely. Yeah, unlikely he would play.
Wan'Dale Robinson?
Yeah, like the receivers. What's going on with the New York Giants receivers? I want to get some clarity there on what the usage is going to be. If there's going to be a quarterback that even can facilitate any of that usage, like Kadarius Toney, is he going to get on the field? He was banged up last week. Wan'Dale Robinson. So that's absolutely what I'm watching for there.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the best thing to look at.
Maybe Thibodeau for a top 10.
I would say Thibodeau's kind of interesting too. Yeah,
very quiet camp around Thibodeau. You hear about everybody else, Hutchinson and even Trevon Walker, and you hear about flashes. This player flashed this, then that. I haven't really heard a peep about Thibodeau throughout all this. I guess everyone's focused on the quarterback situation so much. Yeah,
maybe him and Ojulari play a 5-4 series together.
And that reminds me, I have heard good reports about Ojulari, that he's taking the next step. He's going to be a Pro Bowl player this year. That was the report out of camp, I think, yesterday or today.
I mean, if those two could be a really potent edge rushing duo, and Thomas and Neal could be a really potent pair of tackles, it's a heck of a building block there. I mean, it's something to get excited about.
Sunday evening, finish off the weekend schedule of games before Monday Night Football. We'll push that Monday Night Football game back to another episode and talk about that next week. But Ravens and Cardinals here to finish it up. Matt, what are you looking for? Baltimore at Arizona.
I don't think we're going to see any of the Ravens running backs. That news hasn't been good. Lamar's got a contract situation. I doubt you see much of him. Will Stanley play a fair amount? Probably at left tackle. I think he's a key guy for them. Their pass rush worries me a little, so I'd like to see an Oweh or one of those type of guys maybe really shine in this environment. Cardinals,
Oweh's a good one because he's a raw player coming out. You just want to see that technique and see if he's somebody, because all the physical ability is there. Does he look like that player that's ready to, from a technique standpoint, be an every down nightmare for offenses? That's actually a really good one.
I think he's a pivotal Raven this year.
Mm-hmm. Rondale Moore, Marquise Brown.
First-round linebackers from the last couple of years.
Yeah, do the linebackers look like linebackers? One of them looks like an end and one looks like a safety. Are they going to start like linebackers? Right. It's important. I'm a little worried about this Cardinals team the more I think about it in a somewhat competitive division. I think they're better than the Seahawks, but, man, they might have their work cut out for them to be higher than third in the division.
They really feel like an underbet to me in the over-under win total category.
That is the schedule for week 2 of the preseason. And of course, as we do, Matt and I will be back after the weekend to break everything down, our biggest takeaways from week 2 of the preseason, all the storylines around the NFL. We will have that analyzed for you right here, Peacock and Williamson.